Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Chicago Bears. Doesn't that sound intense? How are you today on a Friday, last day of the week for you working stiffs? And we're going to be talking about our next game, the Bears game in London on Sunday. Um, you know what? I'm not a huge fan of these games. I know it's the NFL does it because they like to make money, but I'm just not a fan, and especially the fact that I have to get up at 6:30. Well, no, 6 a.m. to watch the 6:30 a.m. game here in Vegas. I was going to record it, and I'm like, yeah, no, you're not. You're going to watch it live. I can't wait, right? Because I can't look at anything when I get up on social media because there'll be scores and people will be talking. So I'm like, I'm just going to get up. So let's I guess get into it. And I just want to welcome you back to the show. Thank you for turning me on. Boom, boom. I say that all the time. But yeah, we're back. If you saw my show, I just did a show on Wednesday because I was at the Bears game on Sunday last week in Soldier Field, that awesome game against Carolina. So I'm still riding the high from that. My sister and I and my cousins, we had a blast, the four of us, and it was something I needed so badly because I had a rough summer, but I'm still riding the high from that. So I'm hoping it continues for all of us and we get another win this Sunday. So let's talk a little bit about the game. So let's get into it, right? So we're playing the Florida Jags. They are 1-4. And the Bears are 3-2. And, just because they're 1-4, they are not a team that you should take lightly, because these are the teams you got to look out for. The Jags and Chicago have faced off 8 times since 1985, and the Bears hold a 2-game advantage. They have won. They've got the 2-game advantage over it, so we're ahead. And the last time they met, the Bears, that was in 2020, and the Bears won 41-17. So let's hope that happens again, right? Yeah. I just put this in here. The first time the Bears played in London, I didn't realize that. I thought it was more like in the late 90s and 2000s, and when they started sending teams over to London. But the Bears played a preseason game in 1986 in London against Dallas, and they beat Dallas that game. So they beat Dallas in 1986. Of course, it was a preseason game, but then the last 2 games they played. In 2011, it was Tampa Bay. They beat Tampa Bay. And then in 2019, we lost to the Raiders. And I remember that game. I was so pissed at, what was his name? I can't even think of his name now. Our old coach, the weirdo that wore a visor, a bald head. We should have won that game, but we didn't. And I will tell you, okay, so we'll go over some of the stats, though, first. Like I always do, the Friday before, I kind of give you where the teams, stat-wise, I compare them both, okay? So the Bears, pass-wise, they're averaging 191 yards a game. That puts them 22nd in the league. The Jags are averaging 201 in passing, and that puts them 20th in the league. So we're right there. That's very similar. The rush, they got us beat pretty good. We're still under 100 yards a game averaging. We're at 95 yards a game. That put us 29th. The Bears have got to work on that. I've been preaching run, run, run the whole season if you've been watching my show, and 29th ain't going to do it. The Jags are averaging 126 yards rushing a game. That puts them 11th. So the defensive line, that's one of our weak spots, is the run game. Everything else is pretty solid, so our D-line is going to be tested once again. The Bears are scoring an average of 22 points a game. That puts them 16th in the league. And the Jags are averaging 19 points a game. That puts them 21st. So, we're sort of close. I think last week's game, scoring 36 points, pushed our average up. You know what I mean? The Bears' defense are rocking it. They're only allowing 17 points a game, and that puts them fifth in the league out of 32 games. They're tied with another team. Didn't care to look it up, but that's awesome. Let's keep that rolling, right, D? And the Jags are giving up an average of 28 points a game. That puts them 30th in the league. So hopefully that'll be to our advantage, right? So okay, so let's so our teams, it really two areas. The rush, they got us beat, and we've got them beat handily on points allowed by the defense. So everything else is right there. So it's gonna be, we'll see what happens, but that. So Williams, our quarterback, number 18, he has 1,091 total yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 17 sacks. Yeah, that's terrible. But he's turned around the touchdown ratio to interception because it was the other way around before last week's game. And again, Cabe did not turn over the ball 2 weeks in a row, and that's huge. He's got to keep doing that. Of course, we got to keep these sacks down. He was sacked once last week in the game, so that's an improvement for sure. But our offensive line is still lacking, and it is going to be a problem for the whole year. There's no doubt about it. But then Cabe's starting to run a little bit more. He's got confidence, but it still worries me. But we'll see what happens. Lawrence, their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who's a good one. He's got 1,100 yards passing. He's got 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he's been sacked 12. So he's got a great touchdown ratio to interceptions. So, but we'd like to change that up this week. So we'll talk about that. To make sure that we get some more interceptions. But we'll talk about that in a minute, okay? So the rush game. Number 4, our leading rusher, Swift, who I've not a complete fan on yet. I'm not on his bandwagon all the way. He's got 234 yards rushing, and he's got 2 touchdowns. I'm just going to read all the rushing first, okay? So, and then Williams is right behind him with 113 yards rushing, and number 23, Johnson, has 81 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns. Swift, all right, wait, let me finish. I'm going to come back to Swift because I want to talk about something. So for the Jags, their rushing game, Bigsby has 273 yards rushing, and he has 2 touchdowns. Their next leading rusher, I cannot say this name. It's Etienne. No idea how to pronounce that. I'm not going to try. So whatever. He's got 231 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. And Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback, has 65 yards rushing. So he is a threat to run. So we got to be careful with that. But you could see they've got rushers on their team that can run that ball. Passing wise, number 2, Moore, is coming in with 294 receiving yards with 3 touchdowns. Clement, our tight end, who I love, 219 yards receiving with 1 touchdown. Our rookie, number 15, Rome, 206 yards with 1 touchdown. And Swift, number 4, 165 yards receiving. Their top receivers, their first one is Thomas, 397 yards receiving, which is quite a bit more than our leading receiver. He has 3 touchdowns. Next one comes in, Kirk, 257 yards receiving with 1 touchdown. Davis, 159 yards receiving, and Strang, 120 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. So he spreads it around. Trevor, like Williams, spreads it around to everything. But I believe Thomas and Kirk are the 2 people we're going to have to watch for in this game, okay? Now, Swift. I was talking about Swift. So Swift's got 234 yards rushing. We're going into game, 7? No. six, game six, and he's got 165 yards receiving. So the thing about Swift is I've noticed, so I was thinking about it. So I've been thinking about it. And so, as I said, I feel like he needs to be getting 100 yards a game. So I looked up, okay, how many times in the 5 years Swift has been in the season has he run 100 yards plus a game? And it's only been 6 times. So clearly this guy is not a true 100-yard guy. You're just going to pound it all game long. So I was like, okay, maybe polls, and maybe my mind is pickled, and especially after last weekend. But I kind of started to put it together. So he's got 234 yards rushing. He's got 165 yards receiving for a total of 399 yards combined. So I'm thinking, okay, polls must have known this going. Well, of course he knew it going in, and I'm thinking his thinking is, okay, this guy is going to be the all-purpose guy. He's going to be our short passing and our running back, and then we can use Johnson and Herbert or they should be using Johnson and Herbert to get those additional needed yards. We're not getting over 100 yards a game. We have to. Now, last week we did combined, but it's still, we're not averaging 100 yards a game. We're still at 95. Last week we had a good running attack with Johnson and Swift, but it's got to be consistently over 100. So I'd like to see the Bears. So I get polls thinking, so they're going to start using Swift. He's going to be the runner, but he's not the runner that's going to take and push the defensive line backwards. That's Johnson 23 and Herbert 24. So the Swift thinking, okay, now I'm thinking, all right, but if Swift continues to do both and gets at least 75 to 80 yards a game rushing. I'd like 100, but let's just say rushing. And then he has, 50 to 70 yards receiving in a game. That's a contributing, and I can get on his bandwagon, but I'm not there yet. So, but you see what I'm thinking? That's what they're doing with him, because in 5 years he's only run for one. In 5 years he's only run 6 times for 100 yards. So that says a lot, doesn't it? Okay, so let's get to the defenses. Let's compare them. So the Bears defense has 14 sacks. The Jags have 11. This is the biggest difference. The Bears have 6 interceptions. Right on. I think that puts them like 3rd in the league. And the Jags have 0. And let's hope it continues 0 on Sunday, right? The Bears have 5 forced fumbles and 5 fumble recoveries, which is great. The Jags have 2 forced fumbles and 2 recoveries. So the Bears are beating them on turnovers. We're close on sacks, so it sounds like their defense is good at the sacking, but we know their defense gives up a lot of points. So, but our offensive line is so bad that these guys are going to get to them, and that worries me. You know what I'm saying? So, it is. I think it's going to be another important game for the Bears. I think they need to come up with at least 4 sacks again, and I'm going to predict another 2 turnovers. 4 sacks and 2 turnovers on Sunday. Although I'm very worried about our backfield. The two big injuries in our backfield are Brisker, number 9. You know he's awesome. He's all over the field every game. He didn't even make the trip because of a concussion. And number 29, Stevenson in the backfield is doubtful. He's with the team, but he's doubtful. And if he doesn't play, and we know Brisker's not playing, our backfield is going to be vulnerable, and it worries me because they're so good. So other guys are going to have to step up. I'm asking for 2 turnovers. I don't know if the backfield can pull it up, but you never know. Maybe they can pull it and together, and whoever's in there has an opportunity to show us stuff, because it is going to be real tough not having Brisker in there. So, I've done the comparisons. And what we're going to have to do to win this game. First of all, my threes. I'm going to do my threes. You know my threes. I do them every show. time of possession, turnovers, penalties. Time of possession, the Bears have been doing very well the last few weeks. They killed it last week, and the score showed it. And so they want. It's very important because it keeps your offense on the field, their defense on the field. It keeps your offense, their offense off the field, and our defense off the field, which gets them rested. So time of possession is very big, and you want to win that. Turnovers, well, it's obvious. Turnovers make a huge difference in a game. Look what they did last week. It was huge. And by the end of that game, Carolina was pissed. So turnovers just jacks your team. It can give your offensive team some good field position, hopefully, and they can get some points out of it. The Bears did off of 2 turnovers last week. The offense came out and scored 2 touchdowns off of 2 turnovers. So that's what they got to do. And in the past, we'd have turnovers by the defense, and the offense never did anything. So it's huge to win that turnover battle. And then penalties. I've got a rule of 5 or less. I hate penalties. They just 2 weeks ago we had 10, and we won that game, but I don't know how we did with 10 penalties. It was no, did we win that game? Yes, we did. And so penalties, they got to keep them under 5. Last week they were 5 and less, so it's good. So if you can win these 3, my 3s, at least 2 out of the 3 of them, you're in the game and you have a chance to win it. Now, if you win all 3 of them, you're probably going to win. So we'll see. But penalties, again, the Bears have got to keep them down. Now, the Bears, the Bears have been playing well the last 2 weeks, as we know. And they've started to have complete games where all aspects, offense, defense, special teams, are contributing, and we're making less mistakes. Except for our O-line. That is just a problem. There's no point in beating the dead horse on that. You know it's going to be our problem all season, and if we can get a game here and there from them that they really come out and play well, it'd be great. This week is going to be, every week's going to be a test for them. These guys have 11 sacks, so they can sack the ball. So we're going to, that offensive line has got to come out and do whatever they can. And again, the Bears and Cabe cannot turn the ball over again. Now, he's had 2 games without any turnovers. The last 2 games, everybody's got to agree, he has improved a little bit each week where he's making more decisions. Last week, he was changing the plays quite a bit, but he's still got to get those balls downfield and getting those receivers open. He's got to get those balls in there, and he did it last week. Much better than he has in any previous game. This was his best game, in my opinion, all around. He was only sacked once. He didn't turn the ball over. He ran a few times, and he was getting those receivers. So it's important for him to start doing it, and it's real important for the offensive coordinator, Shane, to do what he did last week, where he really mixed up the plays, run, pass. I don't recall him doing any passing behind the line of scrimmage last week, I hate those. We don't do those. We don't have the ability to gain yards from those. Those are never in our favor. So, again, the Bears, offensively, we know what they have to do. They got to establish that run game again. They've got to get over 100 yards. That's just going to help Cabe out. Cabe has just got to be smart with the ball, no turnovers. Try to avoid those sacks at all costs. Try to throw it out of bounds, whatever. But be smart with it. Cabe has got to, each week he's got to do something better and better and better that he did from the week before. And by the end of the season, we're going to have a quarterback who could take us to the Super Bowl next year. It's not going to happen this year. You know that. So the Bears and that, the running the game, like I said, we're bad. We're 29th in the league. So, and I told you about, how they're using Swift, where they're doing both. Okay, but then they got to still get Johnson and Herbert in there because those 2 can move the pile and get you extra yards. I know they use Johnson number 23 on the goal line, and that's great. Because he scored a couple touchdowns last week, but we just got to improve that run game. Really, their biggest problem, the Bears, is O-line for sure and run game. this week, the backfield for defense is going to be a concern, as I say, because we've got two key injuries, okay? So really, we just have to continue to do what we've been doing the last few weeks. Complimentary football, hang on to that ball, play as a team. Each player go out there and play 100%. Do your job. If everybody does their job and does it well, mistake-free, we're going to win this game. Now, the Jags are 1-4 and everyone's, but there is one thing. Now, the Bears arrived in London on Monday night, which was smart. When they lost in 2019 to the Raiders, they didn't get there until Friday morning, and when the Bears were on that field, my son and I still talk about it, they looked very lethargic, they looked tired, and it was terrible. They lost that bad. That game was embarrassing. They left Monday night, the team, which was awesome. The Jags are in Florida, and we all know what just happened there, right? They've been predicting that hurricane since last weekend. The Jags should have hopped on a plane right after their Sunday game last week and gone to London. They didn't do it. They waited, and now, as of yesterday, I didn't look today. Well, I tried to, but there was no updates. I did look today. As of yesterday, they hadn't taken off for London yet because of the hurricane. That was just plain stupid. Should have gotten there before. I mean, what were they thinking? It's a hurricane coming to your state. So they couldn't get a plane because all the airports were closed. So this could be a big advantage for the Bears. So you figure they're probably going to be there today. I imagine they're probably getting out today, and they're only going to have a couple days to adjust. They're going to be tired, the time change. So let's hope that is in our favor. But you can't take a team like this lightly and overlook them. Now, the Bears have a bye next week, so I would think they wouldn't be overlooking them for their next game because they have a bye. So, and I would hope that Coach Flus is getting into their head and saying, listen, these guys need a win. They are hurting badly because people had them going to the playoffs this season. So they need this win. I mean, we need the win, but they need it way more than us. So it's going to be, the Bears have got to be on their toes. Do not let this game get away from you. Stay focused and win this game, and we're going to come home. If they win this game, they'll come home 4-2 before the bye. And after the bye, the Bears have what did I read? It was the second toughest second half schedule. After the bye, we haven't played Lions, Minnesota, or Green Bay. We have to play them 2 times each. So 8 times after our bye, we have to start playing our division, and our division is all well over 500. Look at Minnesota, they're 5-0. I think Detroit is 4-1, and I want to say Green Bay's 3-2, but I don't know for sure. But we got a good division, and we play after our bye. We play Washington, and they are really good. I think I don't think they're winless. Winless. I don't think that they're 5-0. If anything, they're 4-1, but they could be 5-0. But they're very good. So besides playing those 8 games with our division after the bye, we have Washington, the 49ers, and the Seahawks, I believe. So we have a very tough schedule after the bye. So it's important to come home with a win on a team you should beat. That's the bottom line. The Bears really should beat Jags to be 4-2 to go into this next really hard part of their season. I don't know what's going to happen, so we're all going to have to take deep breaths when this all starts because there's going to be a lot of really tough games coming up. So Bears, you need to bring home a victory. So every show or every other show, I give an interesting fact. So when I was looking at interceptions on both quarterbacks, I got to thinking, I know, stop laughing. It's not funny. I do think once in a while. The light bulb does go on once in a while. And I was thinking, who has the most interceptions in the history of the NFL? And I guess this one kind of surprised me a little bit, but then I got to thinking about it, not really, because he was a gunslinger for sure. And it is Brett Favre. He threw 336 interceptions from 1991 to 2010, most in history of since they started recording interceptions. So, and Favre, he was a gunslinger, so it's not surprising that he threw the most interceptions, but it is interesting. Like last week, I told you Brady was sacked the most. You just don't think about that, and you're like, wow. So it's kind of fun. I have a couple other interesting things, and I'm going to try to add them. I got a good one, but I'm saving it. It's something about our team. So, but I always like throwing out little, like, people think, oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Like, we were talking when we were at the game last week about how back in the day, they cut beer sales off at the end of the third quarter. And I was telling my cousin, back in 85, they cut off on Monday night games. And I can't say for sure on Sundays, but Monday night games back in 1985, they cut off beer sales after halftime. Yeah, can you believe that? That's a whole quarter. And I remember, I will tell you a funny story. So we were at a game and we were sitting in the end zone, not the Grady seats, but we were in the second row of the end zone. And it was halftime, and it was coming to where you had to we all took turns. There was four of us. We were my husband and then two of our friends. So it was my husband's turn. So we were like, hurry up, get back there. So the game was playing, and he was still in line. And you know what? Maybe it was the third quarter. But I do know that back in 85, there were Monday night games, and this was a Monday night game. So anyways, it was his turn to go get the beer, right? So the Bears get out there. They have an offensive drive. They come down, and the refrigerator Perry, number 72, was on our defense. And if you're an old Bears fan, you know who I'm talking about. Scored his first offensive touchdown that night in our end zone. He comes right up to the wall and spikes the ball, and we're all looking at him. We're like, ah! And everybody was going crazy. And my husband was just coming down with the beers, and he's like, what's going on? What's going on? We're like, refrigerator Perry just scored a touchdown. He's like, what? And he missed it. Then, not only did that happen, so we put the beers under our chair, and the guy next to us, I can't remember, knocked over a couple of them. Yeah, my poor husband, he was just like, shit. And then after that, after 85, then they changed it to, but that was only Monday night games. I don't know if they did halftime on Sundays. I doubt it. But Monday night games they did, because people were getting out of control, I guess. And after that, I don't know if everybody does it, but I know the Bears went to, at the end of the third quarter, they stopped beers. And it was funny because when we were at the game last week, our neighbor was sitting next to us, comes back with two beers, and he goes, well, remember, they're going to stop selling them. We're like, oh my God. So like one cousin got up, she goes, I'll go get them. So she ran down and she got us all beers before they stopped selling them. But another little tidbit I told you there. So yeah, I mean, bring home a victory. You can win this game. It's winnable. Play like you've been playing, and we'll have another victory. We need to be 4-2 going to this bye. It's really important for the Bears. As I've said with the schedule, you go ahead and look up the schedule, and you'll see what I mean. It's tough, real tough. And the Bears, with this offensive line and our running game, I don't believe I'm hoping that we can at least beat Green Bay once. That is my goal this season, to improve to 500. No matter, just 500. I want the Bears to finish at least 500 and have one Green Bay win. That's what I'm asking for this year. So we'll see, right? So really, that's it. I pretty much broke it down. I'm not going to jibber jab. You know what we need to do. We're all going to get up. You guys you start your game at 8:30. Mine's at 6:30. And I will be back on Monday to talk about it. And hopefully it is a victory. If they don't, it's not the end of the world, but it would really help them to go in to the bye 4-2 with a victory and heading into this rough schedule. So let's see. And on that note, as I always do, be kind to one another, love one another, stop hate. Let's just stick together, love one another. It's just these times are tough. We have an election that's gotten on everybody's damn last nerve, regardless of who you're voting for. It's on everybody's damn nerve. I don't know about you guys, but the ads on TV here are out of control. I mute them all the time. I can't stand it. I want this thing to be over with. And it's a very stressful time here. So we need to stick together to get through this and be kind to one another. And Midwest people are the best. Everybody's good. I don't want to insult anybody, but mostly Midwest people are watching this show. Maybe some. I mean, you might not be living in the Midwest anymore like me, but we're Midwesterns. I lived there 59 years before I moved here. So, but just be kind. It's just the best way to do. And smile at somebody. If you're out and about, say hi. You just never know. It can really change a bad day for somebody into a good day. You know, help somebody out if you're in the grocery store. I'm short. I'm 5'1". I can't reach that top shelf. I need help, you know. So when people help me, I'm like, thank you, you know, and just, it's kind. So please, for me. And as always, I really appreciate you watching my show, having some fun with me. Let's get another victory. Have a victory Monday so I can sing that touchdown song that I know you guys are just digging it, aren't you? So, but I do appreciate you watching. I hope I made you smile today. Hope you learned a little something. I got you ready for the game. Let's get our coffee and our donuts and pancakes and eggs, whatever you're going to be eating while you're watching the Bears game. And let's bring home a W. All right? Because we want nothing less. Let's show the world who the Chicago Bears are. Go Bears! Thank you. I love you all. Tell everybody to turn me on because I need it, man, big time. Anyways, on that note, keep on rocking and rolling from Vegas, baby.